Welcome to Your View with me on JJ Tabane. We decided to pay a visit to the House of Parliament to talk to a few leaders about the work of Parliament in 2019, but also tap their brains about what needs to be done in the future. What an interesting basket of conversations we had there, from talking to small parties such as the UDM and the ATM to talking to the Speaker of Parliament, as well as the Chief Whip of the main opposition party, or the official opposition party. By the way, the Speaker reminded me that in this
Thanks for staying with Your View with myself, Bongiwe Zwane, standing in for JJ Tabane, who is currently in Cape Town. And while he was in Cape Town, he decided to pay a visit to Parliament. Let's find out why.
Welcome to Your View with me on JJ Tabane. We decided to pay a visit to the House of Parliament to talk to a few leaders about the work of Parliament in 2019, but also tap their brains about what needs to be done in the future. What an interesting basket of conversations we had there, from talking to small parties such as the UDM and the ATM to talking to the leader of the House, the Speaker of Parliament, as well as the Chief Whip of the main opposition party, or the official opposition party. By the way, the Speaker reminded me that in this same chamber, the old Assembly chamber, this is where Verwoerd had died. But also adding a caveat that his ghost, it is said in legend, that is still roaming around the chamber, or roaming around the precinct of Parliament. Natasha Mazola, that this is where Helen Suzman used to be a lone voice, representing those who don't look like her. Just in those two conversations, you can see that we're still talking about a parliament that is polarized, that is talking sometimes past each other, but also a parliament maybe that's diverse, that represents the diversity of our people. So indeed, in those conversations, one could tell that unlike other administrations or parliaments, the sixth parliament seems to be dealing with issues that are heated in terms of social cohesion, that are heated in terms of redress, in terms of race. If you look at issues of land, for example, it's something that people are looking forward to ensuring, or rather to observing, that Parliament will resolve the issue of land, an issue that has bothered many South Africans. Ahead of the elections, there was a lot of song and dance, every political party declaring their undying love for the people of South Africa by how they're going to resolve the land issue. It's now been a few months down the line, and it is fair to say no progress has been made. If it is, it's all about committees, a committee that in the first place was set up by the fifth parliament. Now it's been set up again by the sixth parliament to resolve the issue. The people are watching. They are watching to see whether indeed the politicians are taking the issue of landlessness seriously. The DA has been very clear that they don't believe that the Constitution should be amended. But it seems to me that they are a minority in that regard. There seems to be a lot of consensus that the Constitution has got to be changed to empower the state to expropriate land and redistribute it accordingly, in order for it to be part of ensuring economic participation of the majority of people who have been left out of the economic mix. So the land, a big issue for this parliament to resolve in the next couple of months, and really we're looking forward to that situation moving forward. I spoke a little more to the deputy chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. A lot of people believing that the NCOP is unnecessary, if not a rubber stamp that hardly ever criticizes or amends any comma or full stop in the laws that are passed in the National Assembly. The deputy chairperson assures me that the NCOP is not just there as a cousin of the National Assembly, but it has its own role of combining, or rather ensuring coherence amongst all three spheres of government. She gave examples of how people are able to petition the NCOP directly, gave reasons why the NCOP should continue to exist because of its oversight role, where they are able to go into communities to ensure that national government, local government, provincial government do their work. I'm not sure whether to believe that. The NCOP has been rather muted in the work that it's supposed to do. I gave an example of Alexander. Under its nose, Alexander has been a political football where the provincial government, that has failed in its mandate of human settlements, right, continue to just cook a snook at the people. The local government, even led by the DA over the last couple of 3 years, have failed the people of Alexander in a big way, despite that they have only come onto the scene 3 years ago. In fact, this administration that is currently existing in Johannesburg flattened structures of people. And a mayor who happened to be abroad when this happened arrived back and said, I'm going to restore the houses. I asked him recently in an interview that was meant to be his song, whether he indeed restored those structures that were flattened by that local government. National government didn't want to be left behind. Ahead of the elections, Ramaphosa was seen with his motorcade sneaking around the horrific streets of Alexander, making all kinds of lofty promises, even getting the number wrong of how many houses can actually practically be built in Alexander, promising heaven and earth. But that's what we expect of politicians ahead of an election. But that example, rubbing salt into the wound of the people of Alexander who have been left with, stone-faced or red-faced after money was stolen that was meant to develop their backyards, shows how ineffective a structure like the NCOP can be, even though it claims to be putting together national government, provincial government, local government. But of course, we are thankful for small mercies. The NCOP deputy chairperson telling me that the NCOP is not about to resign its responsibility. I'll put to her, by the way, another debate that remains in the air. A debate that says, do we even need provinces at all? What do provinces actually do? What do provincial legislatures do? What do they legislate? How many laws have they passed since 1994? As opposed to how much money has been spent on maintaining infrastructure for all these provincial legislators to pretend to be passing laws. Why do we need these provinces? What do the MECs do that can be done by local government? What do the MECs do from a legal perspective that can be done by national government departments in those line functions? And this is the debate that, of course, requires brave people. Because when you're going to touch people's bread, when you are going to disrupt patronage, you need to be brave. Because your own colleagues are going to look at you funny. That you really are saying we must close down provinces. Where are you going to take all of these MPLs? Where are they going to work? Where are they going to eat? Where's the bread going to come from? You need to answer those questions if that debate will ever see the light of day. Today we come to you from these chambers of Parliament. Then the big question is, why are these chambers in the Western Cape? Why are these chambers in the Western Cape when to maintain their operations, ministers have to fly up and down between Pretoria and Johannesburg every week, carrying with them a bevy of staff who themselves are flying up and down the country. They have to be put up in hotels. And it is just a messy, messy financial situation. But others are saying, well, we've got to distribute the power. In the same way that the so-called Union of South Africa had all of these centers of power distributed, the judiciary in Bloemfontein, the constitutional court, or rather the administration in Pretoria and the legislature in Cape Town. Do we really need to continue the heritage of the Union of South Africa? Is it not time that some bold steps are taken to cut down on things that are expensive, that are wasteful? In the midst of wasteful expenditure that the Auditor General is complaining about, should we be maintaining these structures of Parliament scattered all over the country, or should we consolidate, cut our losses, and move Parliament? Again, another debate that shows the cowardice in our political system and our political leaders. When last did you hear that debate even happening? I'm sure there were commissions and documents commissioned by all sorts of parliaments over the last 25 years, but is anybody going to table this for a discussion, a proper discussion, where the lawmakers can finally decide what needs to happen to these houses of parliament? I don't know. You be the judge. I don't even see it coming up in the 6th administration at all. One of the things that came up in our conversations with the political leaders is the role of the opposition, and the fact that the opposition, as it sits now, is scattered all over the place. Has another 2 seats. You know, the IFP, a couple of. Are they ever going to make a difference? Or is it time that they themselves stop with their nonsense and in fact start talking about consolidating the opposition benches? In this scattered fashion, one seat there, another seat over there, what difference can they really make? Can they be taken seriously by those who are wielding big numbers and who will ram down any legislation, any law at any time that they wish? Is it not time that some of the small opposition parties consolidate themselves into proper coalitions that could in fact pick issues that are important for our people, and therefore in that way consolidate the work that they're supposed to do in overseeing the executive? Very disheartening that a party like the UDM is left with 2 seats, when in fact it used to be hope for many people to say, oh, here's a party that can bring people from different communities and so on. And now it is just being reduced even worse to a regional party. Even there in the region where it exists in the Eastern, it has failed. And it's continuing to fail our people there in the PE, or rather the Nelson Mandela Metro, where again there they've got 2 seats, but wielding a lot of power, and maybe not wielding it in a manner that is expected, in a manner that is in terms coherent or cogent with its reputation to fight corruption. It's bad what is happening to opposition politics in this country. The DA falling at the seams. I had a long conversation with the chief whip, and in fact that conversation completely the opposite of the conversation we had with the leader John Steenhuisen. It's clear that the DA has got to wake up and realize that the mixed message on issues of redress and race is not going to buy them any favors. Black South Africans are fed up of having to take a back seat with parties playing gymnastics about issues of redress. Black South Africans are fed up of parties that use them as voting fodder, and when they have to deliver redress, when they have to deliver development, they've got bloody excuses. And the DA has got to realize that. They will remain a party of minority Western Cape government and never govern this country if they don't wake up from their slumber of ensuring that they can speak truthfully and directly to black South Africans and say, we will ensure that there is redress for the sins of our fathers. They've got to do that, or they must just forget about ever being government in this country. They'll remain an opposition party, and maybe they will be lucky to continue to rule the Western Cape. You cannot have a situation where people are mumbling from two sides of the mouth on issues of redress, issues of affirmative action, if issues of employment. They are not a favor, man. They are not a favor that MPs and so on must do for the majority of South Africans. They are at the heart of ensuring that every single citizen in this country can have economic participation. And if this parliament fails in its oversight role to make sure that government can oversee implementation of issues like BEE, employment equity and affirmative action, then this parliament is useless for the majority of our people who are yet to enjoy the freedom dividend. And so